Hello. I'm Derek Rhodes. I'm the VP of Community at Vimeo, and we're thrilled that you're here today. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm with Megan Oretsky and Ina Pira. They're two of our curators at Vimeo. They've both been at Vimeo for multiple years. They've seen more short films than probably anybody else on the planet. So I'm thrilled to speak with both of them today. And we're going to be talking about how shorts break through the noise. I'm curious, just to get a show of hands, how many people in here are either short filmmakers or aspire to make a short film or... Wow, quite a lot. Okay, that's really helpful. This is awesome. So this is going to be great. We're going to have this in basically 3 parts. So we're going to talk a little bit about Vimeo and our history and staff picks, and then they're going to give you some tips for like their insights on how short films work best in the world. And then we'll have time for Q&A at the end. So if you have questions that I don't get to, save those for the end, and we'll have about 15 minutes to talk more. You guys ready? Are you excited? Yeah, I have a clicker.
I'm so short for this chair. Hopefully I don't just swing around the whole time.
I know, I can't.
Are we allowed to just swing? To get started, I think probably for folks that aren't as familiar with Vimeo, Ina, if you wouldn't mind walking us through a little bit of the history of the Staff Picks program.
Sure. So I'll do the cliff notes. Vimeo was founded in 2004, and then a couple of years later, we were the first online platform to launch HD playback, which was really exciting because a lot of creative people, artists, filmmakers, wanted their work to be shared and seen in the highest possible quality. So they all sort of migrated to Vimeo, and the people working at the platform on the time saw this really amazing work being shared and decided to start featuring it and highlighting some of the best work that they were seeing. And they created the Staff Picks channel. It's similar to, you know, when you go to your local wine store and the people who really know and love the wines recommend their favorites. It's the same sort of mission. And now, 17 years later, that's still what we do every day on the curation team. There's 4 of us, Megan, myself, Bo Farrell, and Megan Costello.
Hey, Megan.
And our day-to-day consists of trying to find the best short films in many different places, and we'll go into that, and trying to share them with our community.
Thanks, Ina. That was a great summary. Megan, can you talk a little bit about what you look for on, like when you're assessing this massive mountain of staff picks on a daily basis or films on a daily basis? What is it? What are the things that you're looking for in the films that make them stand out?
That's a really good question because we are 4 different people with different backgrounds, different opinions, different tastes. But there are 4 main bullet points that we do think about when we are considering a film for a staff pick. The first is excellent craft, exceptional craft. So does it look and sound amazing? Does it innovate and push the medium to a new level? And this isn't an end-all be-all. We have staff pick films that were made with an iPhone and films that were made with the fanciest camera out there. And I'll talk a bit more about this, but at the end of the day, it comes down to, yeah, we look for craft, but it could also be an amazing story that leads us to give it the badge. Engaging storytelling. So does the film pull us in? Does it make us think and ask questions? Does it elicit authentic emotion through compelling story and characters? And usually when I'm asked this question on panels, and they're like, I'm always asked the question, well, how do you know it's a staff pick? How do you know you like something? It's kind of hard to answer. And I always say you kind of lose track of time. Like the film becomes kind of a time travel portal, both to the future and like into another world. And I think that that's like the most magical thing that film can do for you, is transport you to a different place and make you feel the emotions of other people and feel empathy and all of these things. So anyway, engaging storytelling.
Anyway, that was great.
Originality. So when you watch shorts all day, you start to see a lot of the same stories, and it's okay if we've seen the story before, but are you telling it in a different way? Can we hear your voice in it? Is it a unique approach to that story? And then diverse perspectives. So we're curating for a worldwide audience, and our goal is to find stories that reflect the diversity of our viewers. And it's important that the art that we champion be made by people with different backgrounds and varied perspectives on life. And the easiest way to distill it down is if you think about 2 different axes, one is craft, one is story. The ideal staff picks are kind of a marriage of those 2 things, but most staff picks, I would say, like, usually excel greatly in craft and like have pretty good storytelling. Like we can't have a bad story, or it's an amazing story and the craft is like passable, like made with an iPhone, and that's part of the story or something. So, yeah.
That was great. Thanks for taking us through that. I want to start with kind of a basic question, but I already mentioned that you and the team look at a really high volume of videos, on a daily basis. What I'm curious about is how often are you at this point in your careers surprised or like really truly like amazed or delighted by a short film that you come across? Do you want to start first with that one, Megan?
Oh, I mean, I think no.
Okay.
I'll take it.
And be honest.
I mean, it's the feeling that we're chasing, right? Like, that's what keeps us doing this job. I've been curating at Vimeo now for almost 8 years and was programming film festivals before that. So that sense of discovery and surprise and seeing something that you haven't seen before, that's what we're all chasing, watching, links upon links upon links. But the reality is, because we see so much, we've seen a lot of stories told and we've seen a lot of different approaches. So it's hard to surprise us, but when you do, it means you've made something really special and something really unique. So those are harder to come by, but that's what we do it for.
Cool. So there are short films that are really like radically innovative and shocking and inspiring and do something really weird or different. And then there's sort of maybe more simple films that just like tell a story, or the acting is amazing and the writing and the way it's shot. I'm kind of curious, like, you see a mix of those, obviously. Like, how is it one more than the other, Megan, or what does that look like for you?
Yeah, I would say more on the end of perfecting. Shorts are like a playground for filmmakers. Like, you're honing your voice, you're honing your craft, you are building your tribe, which is your crew, and so you're trying to nail down the fundamentals of making a great film. And so I would say we see more of that than like the frills of like amazing camera work or like incredible fancy cameras. They're just focusing on a well-written script, for example. And a really good example of this is a film by Sam Davis called You Know Where to Find Me, which we actually featured as a staff pick premiere, and I'll talk about that program later. But it's the simple story of a kid leaving his home for the first time and getting an apartment and moving away from his mom. And Sam, it's a really simple story, like nothing fancy about it, but it's so engaging. And we featured this as a premiere, and with the premiere, we asked the filmmakers, what is your advice to aspiring filmmakers? And I just wanted to read this quote from Sam, because I feel like I've shared this with so many filmmakers, and I always butcher what he said, so I just want to read it. Make something simple and contained. Set your story in 1 or 2 accessible locations. Take however long you need to find the perfect person for the role, and invest your time and resources in drilling down deep and saying something new with those few ingredients, rather than spreading your production thin and coming away with something superficial. So he made something that was really true to him, really true to the family that he had built to create this film, and that authenticity came across, and it was really warm and really moving, and you could really feel that.
Yeah, and I've noticed sometimes with short films, especially the first one, you'll see that it's someone really showing what they know, like the world that they live in, or maybe they know someone who owns a business that they're very familiar with, or their parents do something, or their family does something that's like, and I guess in a way it gives them a more genuine way into telling that story that's just like firsthand knowledge, right? It's part of their life. It's really cool. One like very obvious path for shorts is I really want to make a feature, and this short is a proof of concept to see if that can be a thing, right? So they want to have a sample or like a character study that is part of a larger work. I'm curious, when you think about that, like, I guess sort of traditional shorts path, like, are there certain projects that come to mind that jump out at you as like, that's a great example of that, and that really worked well? And how do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, we're at Sundance, so some of the big Sundance examples, of course, are Whiplash, which came here as a short and then was turned into, this award-winning feature. Thunder Road is another Sundance short that won the Grand Jury Prize and was later turned into a feature. There's so many stories of filmmakers sort of finding a story or finding a project and making this short and then bringing it out into the world, and it finding an audience, finding support, and then getting an opportunity to make it into a bigger project. It's always exciting to see that happen. But when we're looking at shorts, to be honest, we're most excited And we think it's best done when the short isn't made as a proof of concept, or if it is, it stands on its own as its own complete piece of work. When a filmmaker is really treating it, whether or not the feature ever gets made, it's such a long journey to make a feature, that short should still live on its own, and that's when our team gets really excited. If a short feels like a trailer, then we're really not getting a complete story, and we're less excited about those. And I also think that's when it's really most successful, when a filmmaker can articulate a theme, a story, a tone in a complete way in a short. Then, like, if I had all the money, then those are the ones that I would, try to develop into features, because it shows that they have the skills. I think it's harder to make a great short than a great feature, to be honest. So while it's harder when it's done really well, that's when we get really excited.
Yeah, and I kind of wonder, like, if someone has already written a feature, right, and they're trying to figure out where the short film is or what part to use or whatever, like sometimes it feels very abrupt and obvious that they just chose a scene and they don't really care if we understand the backstory or whatever. And then other times they're super clever about the right combination of things. Yeah, I think it's fascinating because it seems like it can really work as its own piece sometimes. And then other times it's very obvious that you're just choosing this scene and you're just trying to use that to get.
Yeah, and like sometimes you might need to do that if, let's say, your reel, I heard a filmmaker say earlier today, like her reel only had music videos and commercials, and she wants to make a feature, but she wants to showcase that she can work in this tone and with that cast. And, sometimes you do need to make a short to prove yourself, but still think of it as its own complete piece, even if that's your intended goal. I think you'll find more success that way.
Cool. A couple more quick ones around the making of a short and concept for your piece. I mentioned the idea of like a short really grabbing attention and being crazy and over the top and groundbreaking in some way, which those are always really fun and interesting, and they get a lot of hype around them. Megan, I'm curious for you, like when we talk about that kind of short, are there very specific films that show up for you that you think of right away? Or
Yeah, and I hope you guys write these down because they are so excellent. One is one of my favorite staff picks of all time. And it's always fun to talk about these because they're outrageous and ridiculous. The first one that comes to mind is, has anyone seen The Procedure by Calvin Lee Reeder? Yeah.
Bonkers, really good.
You might want to watch it with someone who's not too queasy. I showed it to my dad. I have seen my dad cry twice in my life, at a funeral and while watching this short with me, because we were laughing so hard that we were crying. I can't say so much about this film because I'll give it away, but within the first minute, it polarizes the audience. It's either like someone's walking out of the room or someone is laughing, crying. And it involves like some body parts and stuff. And it actually won the short film jury prize U.S. Fiction at Sundance, which is amazing. And I think Thunder Road won the grand jury that same year. So 2016 was a really good year for shorts.
Some body parts and stuff.
Some body parts and stuff. I won't say more.
Just leave it open.
If you like a certain kind of joke, this will be your short. There's also a film called The Chickening, which is a really crazy, bizarre take on The Shining by Nick Denboer and Davey Force. It's a disturbing remix of a classic and off the wall, crazy. And then, yeah, Black Holes by Meat Department, also at Sundance. I'm going to read the description for this because it sums it up. Dave is about to lead the first mission to Mars when he's teamed up with a sentient melon who claims to be the reincarnation of a fashion designer, upstaging his big moment and driving him to the brink of madness.
It's nice when something like jolts you out of your, like when you're watching stuff and you're leaning back, and the thing that makes you lean forward. Sometimes.
Yeah.
It's like I can't believe they did this. What was the one at South by last year? Was it The Flute?
Yes.
That
Nick
also
Rooney's short.
kind of went,
Yes.
went hard.
And we immediately premiered that one after, again, body parts and stuff.
So if you can't tell, Ina and Megan like super weird stuff.
It's true.
I want to pivot. I'm checking our time. Yeah, I want to pivot to talk a little bit more about like the nuts and bolts of you've made a film and you need to figure out how to distribute it or get it where it's going. Obviously, we're at Sundance, and Sundance and South by are amazing festivals, but I'm wondering are there other festivals that you think do an especially good job curating shorts that you're always excited about? Like which ones let's start with, I guess, Megan.
Yeah. I'll name some, but I really think it depends. There's like, I looked it up actually for this panel, how many film festivals there are in the world, and there's over 12,000, which is crazy. It kind of depends on what you want out of your experience at the festival. Like, yeah, there's great programming everywhere. Like, South by is wonderful, Cannes is wonderful, but regional festivals like Palm Springs and Aspen are amazing too. It all depends on what kind of experience you want to have as a filmmaker, and how you want your project to be seen, and what you want to get out of yourself out of going to a festival. Like, you go there to meet like-minded people. Are you going there to network and meet the big wigs? Then you're going to go to Cannes, or you're going to go to Sundance. But there's so much value also in regional festivals, because you're meeting a lot of locals there, and there's also niche festivals, like Mountain Film is for environmental docs, and there's film festivals for female filmmakers. So it really depends on, I would say, like, what kind of experience do you want to have on the festival trail?
Yeah, great answer. And if your film does get into a festival, what happens then? Like, what's next? What do you think are like good tips and tricks for people once they've gotten into that festival, whether it's regional or one of the bigger ones? Like, what do you...
Yeah, I think for short filmmakers especially, I'm just going to generalize, and most of us are working in shorts with limited resources, don't have a publicity team and a distributor often, or a PR, a social media team. I think the filmmaker sort of puts on like a marketing hat when they go to film festivals, and I think the first step is, once you get that invitation, to really do a lot of research and prepare before you get to the festival, to really understand what the festival offers, so that when you get there you can make the most out of it. It's like when you make a film, you like do all this like preparation so that when you get on set you've kind of thought through everything. When you go to a film festival, you want to see, ask them for their industry list, see what panels they're hosting, ask if you can participate in some of the events, and really try to be, because you're actually the only one who can do it, the advocate for your film, to make sure that people know that your project is screening, to get them to invite them to your screening, to hang out with people after the screening that just saw your film and chat with them. That's where your community building starts, whether it's building your audience, but also building future collaborators. And sometimes filmmakers can be shy, and not all of us, doesn't always come naturally to be super outgoing and go to all the parties and network. But honestly, I say, just like, if you're gonna just like fake it for 3 days, those are the days to do it, because I've seen filmmakers, not only meet their like future collaborators, but people who have like funded projects and like taken films, from one festival to like 10 festivals, because they fell in love with it so much and recommended it to programmers. There's just so many opportunities that happen in these spaces, and sometimes if you're sitting in the back of the room and you're shy, you're really not going to tap into that. So yeah, just putting yourself in that space and like getting to know the programmers. Obviously, they love your film, they programmed it. They probably know a lot of other programmers. They maybe program at other film festivals. Like, really just like tap into that whole network, and it's just going to come back tenfold.
I'm definitely feeling for like the shy introvert.
I know.
filmmakers.
Don't be shy.
I've been there too.
Yeah.
I've gone to festivals where I didn't know a single person, and I wasn't there with a project, but it can be scary to enter a room, not know anybody, and also you're like showing a piece of your art, and it feels so vulnerable, and you're hoping that people like it, and it's tough to like engage with people, but that's why we make them, right? Like, isn't that like, this is it. Like, you finally get to like be with an audience who's seeing your film. Like, that's what you've been building towards. Like, you really have to be present for it.
Thanks. I have a lot more questions, but I want to make time for folks to ask questions. Yeah, so why don't we do that? I mean, one thing I do want to say is that we have a kind of an important announcement we're going to make at the very end of this. So if you're tempted to skip out, just hold off for a minute. Even as we're doing the Q&A. If folks don't have questions, I'll just keep going, because I'm as curious about most of this stuff as other people, I think. But yeah, go ahead.
Hi guys. I think the mic is on, but yes it is. Okay, thank you so much for this panel. I'm a filmmaker, and I had a kind of more technical question. So obviously, like, probably thousands of videos are uploaded a day. You're probably not watching every single one. Is there anything when it's uploaded that triggers you guys to say, oh, like, I should take a look at this one?
On Vimeo, for sure, there are
Yeah.
a couple things. Do you want to take that?
Yeah. So it's super important to rally people around your film, because when you engage with the film on Vimeo, it ends up on our trending feed, which is a list of films that our engineers built that have been gaining traction on the site organically in a certain time frame. So we check that every single day. We look through that for potential staff picks, and that's kind of how new voices crop up rather than staff pick alumni. So we find a lot of emerging voices there and new people we've never seen work from. Also, if someone, we follow every staff pick alumni that ever was. I'm following over 6,000 people at this point on Vimeo. So whenever they upload something new, that shows up on my feed. But if you know of a staff pick filmmaker, like, I don't know, I might be following someone that worked on your film. So make sure you use the crediting tool, because when you credit them, that also shows up in our feeds. We also check our feeds every day for potential staff picks. So whenever they like a film or they're credited or they upload a film, that shows up in our feed.
And then there's just like other simple like marketing things, like choose a really great thumbnail. Make sure that when you upload the film, you like fill out all of the information about the film and like a log line and your credit your cast and crew. Anything that you can do to sort of put your best foot forward with the film, so you're not just hitting publish and sort of like expecting people to find it. Like, again, like share it as widely as you can with festivals that you've screened at. Ask them to share it with your community online. You know, just try to cast as wide a net as possible, because we want to find great stuff desperately. Like, we're trying to find your films, and so are other people who are on Vimeo, you know, whether it's programmers or agents or producers. So
Make it easy for us.
Hi. My question is, since you guys see so many short films, if there's any cliches or anything that when you see them, you kind of just like, ugh, like it just kind of feels tired almost, and it makes the film kind of already feel worn.
I have one, even though I'm not a curator. Can I say one?
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of student films start with the person waking up and brushing their teeth and getting ready. like
The alarm clock going
yes,
up.
it's like, oh, the alarm clock. I gotta get out of bed. I'm brushing my teeth. Like, that's a
Yeah.
kind of standard. But sometimes that could be a great film still, right? I mean, what are the other what are there things you see where you guys are just like, okay.
I mean, this is maybe general, but like sometimes, you know, you start by making what you know, right? Like, those are the stories that, as you're like finding your voice, you're telling the stories that you know really well. And I think that's great, and like it's an important sort of like path into filmmaking. But sometimes you can tell that somebody hasn't really let any other voices or perspectives in. And I'm like, oh, just like another editor instead of you. Like, bring in, show it to your, you know, some folks and like get feedback. Sometimes I can tell that, you know, with early projects, filmmakers can be really precious and not get feedback. And there's like certain things that like, oh, they probably could have fixed that if they had like let some people see their work. So like having a community and being collaborative and like getting feedback, you can really help craft a story and avoid some like early filmmaker mistakes.
Okay, caveat, this is not true for everyone, but when you can, try to make your film shorter. I think the longer it is, the more we feel like it should be earning its length. So as I said before, when I'm transported by a film and I'm sucked in, like, the longer it is, the harder it is to keep that attention. So I would say, like, be open to killing your darlings. Yeah, and take feedback from others.
There's some questions over on this.
Yeah, maybe right there in the middle.
We got the mics too.
Oh, cool.
This guy's had his hand up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, talking about time, what would you consider is the ideal duration?
There's no ideal duration. Like, it's the running time your film needs it to be,
Yeah.
but sometimes finding what it needs to be can require a little finessing. If I give you a runtime, I think that would be, I should get fired.
Yeah.
But do you
Yeah.
know, do you know what the average, like, I mean, what's the maximum that you'll curate? Like
40 minutes.
40 minutes,
But
it's rare for you guys
yeah,
to find a film that long. Like,
I think years ago when I started at Vimeo, we had looked at like the back end like data of like how films performed, and around like 7 minutes was like the cutoff mark where the drop off rate of viewership tends to start to dip. But also, like, you know, that's online. Like, attention spans are different. If like it's different for festivals, so I really even like hesitate to share that, because like your film might need to be 13 minutes, and like it should do that. But sometimes it just needs to be 5.
Yeah.
But if 11 of those minutes are like the cat, like,
There are
you know?
exceptions too. Like we just staff picked Connor O'Malley's Rap World, and that was a special thing, and that's like a feature. So
Yeah, it was
we
a
do do that.
55-minute featurette. I think there were some other questions. Yeah.
Hi. Are you all able to, as staff, see a film if it's marked as private?
If the filmmaker shares it with us,
if
yeah.
we share it with you
Yeah.
directly, so what does that process look like? Because for me, the way that I've used Vimeo in the past, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I'll place it so that I'm able to share it to get it into festivals.
Yeah.
So it's never public where a bunch of people are seeing me within a Vimeo community.
Yeah.
But if this is a thing, I need to be sharing it with you clearly.
Yes. So we don't have a formal submission process like at a film festival. You pay a fee and you send in your film. So we have a little bit more of an informal, if I'll love to meet you after the panel, get to know you, and then send me your film when you're ready to put it online. Usually we get private links sent to us. And in those cases, what we recommend is that you send it to us about 2 to 3 months before you're ready to put it online, because there's so many films and we're a very small team. And if we get films that can't go online for another year, our spreadsheets are just going to be insanely long and unmanageable, and we can't keep track of everything. So we're trying to see stuff that is about ready to go online. So when you've gotten sort of to the end-ish of your festival circuit, you're thinking about putting it on the internet, then that's when we would take a look. And then if our team approves it for a staff pick, we would work with you to find a date that makes sense.
A couple more questions.
Hi, I'm Brittany, a director from Chicago. I just have a quick question. So how often are the staff picks released? Is it like on a weekly basis, monthly basis, quarterly? Like how often should we be looking? Because this is the first time that I've heard of it, so I'm definitely going to be tuned in from now. But like how often are you guys releasing the picks?
Yeah, the main place to go to is vimeo.com/watch to watch them all, and we've curated some collections there. We staff pick every weekday, and right now we staff pick up to 2 films a day.
I think of it as like a year-round film festival, right? Like if you can't travel to Sundance and South by, but you want to stay inspired and see shorts and see what people are making, you can tap in any time. And we curate from obviously all the major festivals, but we're also featuring filmmakers that, you know, bypass the festival round, put their films online. So it's a great way to sort of stay up to date on what folks are making, and it's a great way, honestly, when we say like be original, people are like, or figure out festivals that are a good fit for your film. The best way to do that is just by watching a lot of shorts and understanding what people are making, and then seeing where those films are playing, right? And then you can sort of see where your film might also fit.
Cool. I think we have time for a couple more. If there's a few more. Go ahead.
Hi there, my name is Sam, and I currently have my short film in the film festival circuit, and my original plan was to, you know, do that for a year and then submit my film towards the end to Vimeo, No Budge, etc. Do you recommend that, or do you think everyone is different, and or like do you see there's more success in submitting later or earlier?
I don't think it matters. I think it's personally what kind of experience you want to have with the film. Like I said earlier, taking it to a festival can be really wonderful and special because there will be audiences there that won't be able to see it anywhere else. Like it may not, I don't know. Also, it's wonderful to be in a theater and see an audience's authentic response to the film. It's also okay to put your short up online first. Like there are most festivals, I would say, accept the film when it's already online. So that's perfectly okay too, for that to be the trajectory of the film.
Yeah, it seems like there are quite a few filmmakers that will submit to the larger festivals, and then maybe depending on what happens there, put it online, and then they can still show it at festivals, right?
Yeah, a really good way to sort of figure out what makes sense for your project is if you look at the festivals that you're still waiting to hear back from, most of them will list online whether being online is an issue for them or not. You'll be surprised, for a lot of festivals, increasingly they're less, especially for short films, less strict about that. So if you know, sometimes people want to like move on to the next project and you just want to get it out there and like have people respond to it. So that might make sense for films to go online earlier.
I think we probably have time for one or two more. Ina and Megan, I think we'll have a little bit of time to stick around after this if folks want to chat for a bit. If you ask me nicely, I'll give you either of their email addresses because I just don't care. In the back there. I really would.
Hi. Do you consider for staff picks things that have either had a successful run on YouTube or have been on Vimeo for a while pre-existingly?
I haven't heard of that other site that he mentioned. Is it cool if they're on YouTube?
Yeah,
first?
yeah, we'll consider everything. If it's been online for a really long time and has really like had success and found an audience, then sometimes, you know, we want to be able to help that film and help that filmmaker. And if already it's like, you know, gotten 2 million views and we can't really be that additive to that experience, then, you know, we're like, wish them well and congrats on the success of the film, but it might not be the right fit to then feature it. And maybe we want to save that slot for a filmmaker that hasn't had that visibility and hasn't had that support or, you know, that spotlight on them. But it doesn't exclude you from being considered for staff picks. But you know, if it's gone viral on TikTok or, you know, something like that might not be necessarily a great fit for us.
Let's do one more and we'll call it.
Hi, my name's Grant, filmmaker out of Chicago. Just wondering kind of an inside look on how you maybe deal with a disagreement when talking about a film, or
this is one of my
how you
favorite
guys,
topics. I love
you know,
Question.
I love this a 10 and you love it a 2. Why are we talking about?
Those are my favorite days.
These are my least
Because
favorite
it's
days.
exciting if like something can, yeah, Megan is like, I don't want a confrontation. I'm like, no, tell me why you loved it. Tell me. I just think it's exciting when a project can really excite someone for different reasons or pull out like such different reactions and emotions. And I think it's so nice to like, we love movies and we want to like dig into them and like that conversation and like being able to sort of like express to your colleague like why I see something the way that I see it and like try to like give context. Like we all have very different tastes and very different backgrounds like Megan mentioned. So I think those conversations are so enriching and like, yeah, you know, and then how do we finally decide if we're split?
Sometimes it's a thumbs up or a thumbs
Yeah,
down.
sometimes we're like, okay,
we're
who's
a team of
who's
4,
willing to walk
thankfully,
away
so.
from the fight?
Yeah. And the way that we decide if it's a staff pick or not is a democratic process. So at the beginning, when you nominate a film, it's in a big old spreadsheet that we've had for almost the past 17 years, and you write in your rating, and it's so wonderful to see how your colleague has interpreted that film. And it's like, I don't know, exchanging our humanness. It's really beautiful. But when we disagree on something, sometimes it's actually usually one of our colleagues will be like, this is what I felt about it, this is what I saw. And a lot of times you're like, oh, I didn't even think of that. Like, that's a really beautiful way to look at it. So usually it doesn't involve fighting.
No, there's like a foundation of respect that all of these conversations like happen on. Like without that, we wouldn't be able to do this job. Like, you know, so much of it is just like absorbing other people's art and emotions and stories, and we're all kind of like reacting to them in real time. And without like respecting each other's like best intentions throughout the process, like we probably would fall apart as a team.
And it's super subjective. So yeah, it can be personal and sensitive sometimes, but we respect each other.